In your packet, you have this sheet. Once you put down him and her and them and all that stuff, go back and look at this sheet and see if this is like a memory jogger. Is there anything on this list that's blocking you that you didn't include? Okay? And then we're going to pick up at the last paragraph on page 67.
All right. We're going to remember in resentments, it's the past that's eating our lunch. Now we're going to talk about fear. Fear is fear of the future.
And, sorry, Charlie.
Okay.
If you'll notice up at this, on the review of resentments, in parentheses it says, incorrect judgment. Crazy, huh? And then on this one, incorrect belief. Fear.
Notice the word fear is bracketed alongside the difficulties of Mr. Brown, Mrs. Jones, the employer, and the wife. This short word somehow touches about every aspect of our lives. It is an evil and corroding thread. The fabric of our existence is shot through with it. It set in motion trains of circumstances which brought us misfortune we felt we didn't deserve. But did not we ourselves set the ball rolling? We think fear ought to be classed with stealing. It seems to cause more trouble.
Fear is something, about 8 out of the 10 times that I call my sponsor with a problem, or what I consider to be a problem, he takes me to page 68. He says, read the directions, follow the directions, and do the work that's on that page. Because there are things that I'm fearful of that I'm not angry at. I don't have to be, it's like I don't like flying. I really don't. It's a valid fear. If you ever heard my story, I've had some bad brushes with airplanes in my life. But I'm not angry at the plane. Never had sex with a pilot. You see where I'm going with this? I don't like snakes. Not angry at the snake. Didn't have sex with the snake. And I'm not mad at the snake. I'm really not. I just don't particularly like them in the same spot as me. I don't even like to look at them on television. So fear. And I can use fear as a manipulative tool. Tyler calls, but he played a trump card because he's sitting in Kip's garden when he called. And he said, would you come to Orange County, California? I could have said no. Thanks for the invitation, but no thanks. And come up with some whatever for not getting on an airplane. I don't like it. But fear also robs me of opportunities in life that I otherwise wouldn't have unless I do this work and just come to the realization that He, Creator, Great Spirit, is in charge of this deal. It's not me. And He's brought me this far. And my sponsor, God, he's such a dick sometimes. He says, you know, Larry, God didn't wake up this morning and look at the alarm clock and say, you know what? It's Saturday morning. I think I'm going to drop Larry on his butt today. He's kept you alive and useful for all these years. And this is the day that He has chosen to drop you on your ass. It ain't going to happen. You know, He's got it all of it, not just the snakes and the airplanes. He's got all of it.
Those fears is nothing more than negative imagination. I am writing the show again, and it's not going to come off good, and I'm afraid that nobody's going to listen. I'm afraid I'm going to be a failure. I had my three greatest fears in life are fear of success, because if I succeed, I got to do it every time. The fear of failure, that I will not live up. And the worst one of all, the fear of exposure. If you really knew who Charlie Yao was, you wouldn't even let your dog play with me. Negative imagination. There's nothing positive about my fear. If I'm feared of airplanes, every time I get on there, the back of my mind, this sucker's going down. Now, supposedly flying an airplane is a whole lot more safer than riding a motorcycle. You know, I'm not afraid of a motorcycle. I don't care what the roads are. I'll get on it and go because I have such a deep attraction for riding a motor. It makes me feel good.
That's putting it mildly.
Yeah, you know.
Deep attraction. That's good.
Oh, hush. All right, we need to get through this work.
One little line that's over in the 12 and 12, it says that self-centered fear is the chief activator of all my defects of character. Okay? Go ahead, Charlie.
We review our fears thoroughly. We put them on paper, even though we had no resentment in connection with them. We ask ourselves why we had them. Wasn't it because self-reliance failed us? Self-reliance was good as far as it went, but it did not go far enough. Now, some of us had great self-confidence, but it didn't fully solve the fear problem or any other. When it made us cocky, it was worse.
All right, so you're not going to go out and make amends for fears. I mean, so what do you do with fears? Here it is.
Well, perhaps there's a better way, and we think so. For we are now on a different basis, the basis of trusting and relying on God. We trust infinite or unlimited God rather than our finite or limited selves.
Guys, let's not blow through that sentence. It says that we're living on a different basis now. Remember earlier today I said God shows up between 2 and 7. According to this passage, God's already shown up. It says, because we're on the basis of trusting and relying. Two completely different things. Let's just say, for instance, tonight, we go over here to the circus. And we're going to go in and sit under the big top, and all the circus acts and animals come out, and this guy, the lights go dim and the spotlight goes up to the top of the tent, and there he is, that man in that spandex. And he's up on that high wire, and he's got the long bar. And he goes across the high wire, and he's just making these little gentle corrections. And he gets to the other side, and everybody goes, yay! He goes, did you like that? Yay! He says, do you think I can do it again? Yay! Then he gets a wheelbarrow. He says, who's getting in the wheelbarrow? You could hear a mouse sneeze. I trust that he can go back across it, but I'm not relying on him. You follow? So I can sit here and profess to you good people in Southern California, I trust God. But do I really rely? Has he got it all? The good and the bad? All of it? So we trust and rely. We're talking about fears at this point.
Now, here's a very valuable piece of information. We are in the world to play the role he assigns. So God's going to give me a role to play. What is my role to play? Well, Charlie boy, I heard this on a tape, and it's a great analogy. He says, well, Charlie boy, you're the floor sweeper. You get your broom and sweep the floor, and all will be right with the world. That's all you got to do, Charlie boy. You are my man. You are the floor sweeper. So I get my broom, and I'm sweeping the floor. And I'm sweeping across in front of the stage, and I see them up there doing the play. And I'm thinking, now that ain't right. They can do better than that. So I stop, and I'm leaning on my broom, and I'm thinking, that'd be a whole lot better effect if they entered stage left instead of stage right. Well, he's missing his cue right there, too. You know, God ain't using all my potential. So I throw that broom down, and I get back up on that stage, and I said, no, wait a minute, guys. If you'll stand right over there and enter when he makes this cue, here, I'll tell you what, just listen to me. I'll play his part. I'm being the director again. Well, everybody's standing there and said, well, who in the heck is this fool? I thought he was the floor sweeper. And they said, no, No, I'm saying no. Don't listen to me. If we want this thing to get on Broadway, do it this way. I'm telling you. And it don't go off so good. Then all of a sudden, somebody pats me on the shoulder and says, Charlie boy, if you'd sweep that floor, everything will be fine. You don't have to be afraid of this play anymore. Just sweep the floor. That's my role. And if I will stay in God's grace, be proud that I'm the best floor sweeper you ever seen, everything will be fine. Just the extent that we do as we think he would have us and humbly rely on him, does he enable us to match calamity with serenity.
Here's a fair promise.
We never apologize to anyone for depending upon our Creator. We can laugh at those who think spirituality is a way of weakness. Paradoxically, it is the way of strength. The verdict of the ages is that faith means courage. All men of faith have courage. They trust their God. We never apologize for God. Instead, we let him demonstrate through us what he can do.
Here's our 4-step prayer on fear.
We ask him to remove our fears and direct our attention to what he would have us be.
Have us be, not do.
And at once, we commence to outgrow fear.
Any questions on the fear question?
God doesn't always remove fear completely, but he will give us enough courage to go through it because he knows we're scared to death.
And once you've made your list, you have this example back in your packet. You can go through there and see if there are some fears that you might have left off that are blocking you off from him.
Any more questions or comments on fear?
Can you go to the microphone, please?
Fear is negative emotion or negative
Imagination.
Thinking? Imagination.
Incorrect belief.
Now about sex. Many of us indeed needed overhauling there, but above all, we tried to be sensible on this question. It's so easy to get away off track. Here we find human emotions running to extremes, absurd extremes perhaps. Now one set of voices cry that sex is the lust of our lower nature, a base necessity of procreation. Then we have the voices who cry for sex and more sex, who bewail the institution of marriage, who think that most of the troubles of the race are traceable to sex causes. They think we do not have enough of it, or that it isn't the right kind.
Before Charlie goes any further, we were talking, he was giving a description of sponsor commando a while ago, you know, dictating what meetings you go, when you go, and all this stuff. And that's not what this program, the book never gives us any, or the program never gives us any power. You know, you're going to hear people say, well, I fired that son of a gun. He wasn't doing what I told him to do. Or my sponsor fired me. Really? Where did you get any power? Where in this book, please show it to me, where we get a power over another human being. It ain't there. And, you know, I can't judge a lot of the things that you do or you're involved in. It's just none of my business. It doesn't fall under the qualifications or the description of being a sponsor. I said something blasphemous the other night in a meeting. You know, meetings don't get you sober. The 12 steps don't get you sober. Crazy, isn't it? We come to meetings and we meet that person that becomes our guide. They take us through the suggested program of recovery. And somewhere in that process, they take our hand and they place it into the hand of a power greater than ourselves. That's what gets us sober. This is just a pathway, a gateway to that power. So we're about to read about this sex thing, and there's always a little under the breath chuckle with this. But this is one of the things that kills us. I'm not going to go there, but it kills a lot of us because the guilt, the shame, the remorse the manipulative things that we use it for and get ourselves into because of it. So it goes on to say,
They see a significance everywhere. Now, one school would allow no man no favor for his fare, and the other would have us on an all-straight pepper diet. We want to stay out of this controversy. We do not want to be the arbiter or judge, if you will, of anyone's sex conduct.
and now check this out.
We
It says-
all have sex problems.
It says we would hardly be human if we didn't. It doesn't say alcoholics. Go back to Tiger Woods, Brett Favre, Bill Clinton. Come on. You see where I'm going with this? Human beings, we get way off track with this sex instinct. It says we'd hardly be human if we didn't. I had a rule that I wouldn't sponsor a black man because I didn't have black issues. I wouldn't sponsor a woman. I don't have women's issues. And I wouldn't sponsor a gay man. And all of a sudden, a very sober member with 60 years said to me, why? They're not asking you to sponsor them on gay, women, or black issues. They don't want to die from drinking. So I stay out of that controversy. It's none of my business what your sexual orientation is. It's just none of my business. It has not a damn thing to do with drinking liquor. Does this make sense? Okay.
So what can we do about them? We review our own conduct over the years past.
And here's your sex sheet up on the board, and we're going to treat it just like we did resentments and fears.
Again, he's going to throw out our defects of character to us. Where have we been selfish, dishonest, or inconsiderate?
There's the word inconsiderate that was missing from the other fourth column.
Now, whom do we hurt? Did our unjustifiability arouse jealousy, suspicion, or bitterness?
Say, for instance, I'm in a committed relationship, and she and I are at a nice restaurant one night. Hell, we could be at McDonald's, it doesn't matter. But we're sitting there having our meal, and another gal and guy walk in, and his back is to me. My date is facing me, and this guy's wife or girlfriend is looking at me, and our eyes meet. And in that moment, we exchange a look, and that's all. I don't know her. I've never seen her before. Neither will I ever see her again. We didn't have sex. We didn't exchange phone numbers. But my date wife, my significant other, caught me with that look. And she says, what the hell was that about? What have I done? What have I aroused? What else?
Suspicion.
And?
Bitterness.
There you go. So, guys, this isn't just about the in and out urge. This is about what are we doing? We're going to get into a sex ideal in a second. This is about being committed in relationships. And I can sit here with a strong conviction because there's some men in my life that have given me these values. And they're a violation today that are absolutely cardinal to me.
Now, where were we at fault? What should we have done instead? We got this all down on paper and looked at it. Now, in this way, we tried to shape a sane and sound ideal for our future sex life. We subjected each relation to this test. Was it selfish or not? We prayed. We asked God to mold our ideas and help us live up to them. We remembered always that our sex powers were God-given and therefore good, neither to be used lightly or selfishly, nor to be despised and loathed.
All right. Sane, sound sex ideal. I didn't know what that meant. I needed somebody to tell me. And through some of this research and study that we've done over the years, there's a guy named Dave Fredericks. I've never met the man, but he did a man-to-man conference in Iceland, and I got a copy of it, and I got a transcript of part of his workshop. And he gave an idea. He gave his sex ideal from the podium, and I have it. And it's in your packet, and it's not my sex ideal. It's not a sex ideal that I suggest. I'm just going to, we're laying it out to give you an idea what a sane, sound sex ideal could be. It's kind of an outline. It's an example. Number one, a true partner, someone to share equally in the responsibilities of life. neither partner feels or is taken advantage of. Number 2, an intimate relationship, someone who can see into me, my dark side and my light side. Someone with whom I can take emotional risk and let them in behind the wall I put up, not abandon me, totally accepting of me, good and bad, without expectation of change. If change comes, it comes from God. A monogamous relationship, sexually and spiritually, where I show reverence and respect of our love and commitment through demonstration that I demonstrate that my mate is number one all the time in my life, honor and cherishment. Someone with whom I am free to be truthful, not afraid to be honest, both through omission and commission. My lover, open, honest sex, fantasy realization through caring exploration of our sexual natures. The true goal is pleasure for each other through sexual means to enhance intimacy, where two really do become one. And that's the only one that deals with intercourse right there. And there's 12 of them. Go figure. My lover, open, I just did that one. 6, fair play. I kind of like that 5. Fair play. I cracked myself up. Fair play. Total commitment to harmony through fair, expedient compromise, using the rules to keep our disagreement within bounds, and open commitment to a quick, fair resolution to restore harmony to our relationship. Number 7, I feel like I'm doing the top 10 list on the Dave Letterman show. Safe, loving, nurturing home for parenting, emotionally stable, filled with love and self-sacrifice for the good of the family union. Number 8, a balanced relationship, work and play balanced, spending and saving balanced, home and travel balanced. Money is not my God. Love and family are paramount. Number 9, a relationship which nurtures our couplehood, not just parenthood. So when the nest is empty, our relationship just moves to the next chapter, not starts again. Someone to grow old with. Number 10, someone to grow with mentally, spiritually, and sexually. A non-judgmental support for the betterment of the individuals, which betters the couplehood. Number 11, someone who will share in our combined vision of our future, our lives to come, with whom I can strive to reach a mutual goal of serene old age when we look back on happiness in the journey, not a finishing line. Number 12, my number 1 fan, supporter, confidant, best friend, lover, spouse, wife, mother, companion, and hero, where we revere each other through sacrifice and love to become one. And the one we become can give back and help others, including our kids, program, society, and church, where our lives can be an example of the program, which helps others to find happiness, fidelity, and love. We were in Akron, Ohio back in last year, I think in August, and one of the speakers was sitting on the front row, a girl named Ruthie, and I started reading this, and she said, "My God, what an order. I can't go through with it." She'd been married about 9 times. She says, "I have never," she said, because she didn't hear me say this was an example. She thought it's something I wrote. But she had quite a dialogue and opinion about the writing.
So whatever idea it turns out to be, we must be willing to grow toward it. We must be willing to make amends where we have done harm, provided that we do not bring about still more harm in doing so.
I think it's important that we pay attention to what Charlie just read. It says whatever that ideal turns out to be, comes out willingness. We got to be willing to grow toward it. It's not something that, I'm not going to find that perfect situation. I've got to be able to set a goal and grow toward it. I didn't walk in the rooms and got struck sober. It's just not the way that happened.
One of the greatest benefits.
Hang on a second. You got to turn it on and
Randy, alcoholic. Quick question on the sex, the list. I noticed in the book, and I just need some clarification on it. It talked about whom did we hurt? Did we unjustifiably arouse anger, suspicion, jealousy, bitterness? Where were we at fault? We got that. But What should we have done instead? I don't see a column there. When I do this long form on a pad, I have my guys write what they should have done. Is it going to be what they should have done instead? Is that going to be the opposite of one of the other columns? Because
my answer and my experience is I cover that with my guys in the fifth step process.
Okay. Thank you.
Anybody else? We good?
You know, one of the greatest benefits that I have received in my short time in Alcoholics Anonymous is the ability now to have a girl friend. Now, I mean that in the form that I have a true friend and she just happens to be a female. We're on level ground. There's nothing sexual about it because I wasn't able to do that. I couldn't do that with a lady. My sponsor says I'm male-oriented and female-dependent, that I'm not full unless I have a lady in my life. See, nobody's perfect until I fall in love with you. You know? And I don't know why I'm like that, but I am. And when I fall in love all over. Well, everybody I meet in this walk, I don't have to be madly in love with. I can let you be you, and I can let me be me. You know, I've bought enough houses in this world, and I'm living in a pool house. You know, I ride a beautiful motorcycle, and I drive a 2003 pickup truck. You know, I've bought a lot of nice cars, and I don't own one of them. You know, all I got was the payment book. But what I've done is set myself up to do that. Because like I was telling you, I'll be anything you want me to be to have your approval.
Just like me.
Instead of just being me. Well, I have friends today that happens to be women. They don't want anything from Charlie, and I don't want anything from them. They don't want Charlie to get drunk, and I don't want them to get drunk. If they've got a problem that I might be able to help with, they can come to me. If I have a problem can help me, I'm not afraid to go to them. And we do every bit of that with our clothes on. That's what this is talking about. We're not rolling in the hay. They're not talking about intercourse in here. We're building a relationship with the opposite sex. Usually, I mean, nothing that we're just building relationships. So, in my small time in here, I am today able to have a girlfriend because of this work.
And the women in our lives, and there are several men in this room that I know, we have a zero tolerance level. I mean, our home group, Kip spoke at it, Charlie spoke at it, and as I alluded to, we got 250 every Thursday night, and on the big speaker nights, I think, we have 1,200 when you spoke, Kip. And our group is primarily made up of beautiful women, 60, 70%. And we've had men come in and hit on those women, and they've been asked to leave. And we wouldn't be short of bodily harm if they refused, because these are our sisters. And I'm not trying to be a good guy. I'm just telling you the facts. Don't come in here and screw with our sisters. It's just, we're not going to put up with it. And we've asked them to leave, and we've chauffeured them outside. It's just that simple. I mean, we're all sick people. And it's not just about the women in the rooms. It's the women you see it's the opposite sex we're talking about from a male standpoint. I mean, really, do I have anything, is my goal anything other than going to any length to get what you got? Anyway, let's get through this.
In other words, we treat sex as we would any other problem. In meditation and in prayer, we ask God what we should do about each specific matter. Now, the right answer will come if we want it.
There's the caveat, if you want it. Now, there was a couple of prayers on resentment. There was one on fear. And now, so far, we've got 2 on sex. So far.
Now, God alone can judge our sex situation. You mean my sponsor is not supposed to judge my sex situation? Ain't what it said. Counsel with persons is often desirable,
But
we let God be the final judge. We realize that some people are as fanatical about sex as others are loose.
And
We
if you-
avoid hysterical thinking.
if you let that cat out of the bag, a cat's a lot easier to let out than he is to put back in. I'm going to guarantee you don't want to unleash that one because it's going to get hysterical. Everybody's got an opinion about that deal.
Suppose we fall short of the chosen ideal and stumble. Does it mean we're going to get drunk? Now, some people will tell us so, but this is only half true. It depends upon us and on our motives. If we are sorry for what we have done and have an honest desire to let God take us to better things, we believe we'll be forgiven and will have learned our lesson.
And here comes a promise.
Now, if we are not sorry and our conduct continues to harm others, we're quite sure to drink. We're not theorizing. These are the facts about our experience.
And here's your third step on our third prayer on sex.
To sum up about sex, we earnestly pray for the right idea, for guidance in each questionable situation, for sanity, and for the strength to do the right thing.
And if sex is very troublesome, we throw ourselves the harder into helping others.
We think of their needs and work for them. This takes us out of ourselves. It quiets the imperious urge. When to yield would mean much heartache. If we have been thorough about our personal inventory, we have written down a lot. We have listed and analyzed our resentments. We have begun to comprehend their futility and their fatality. We have commenced to see their terrible destructiveness. We have begun to learn tolerance, patience, and goodwill toward all men, even our enemies. For we look on them as sick people.
All right, now, you've looked in your packet and you know there's a four-step inventory on other harms. You've seen it. Where is that in the book, do you think? I mean, again, let's go back. Let's just go back to the resentment inventory. Somebody cut me off in traffic. Or let me give you a little easier example. I'm drinking or drugging or whatever the case, and I'm riding down the road, and I got that beer bottle in my hand, and I see a Mercedes parked on the side of the road, and I don't like capitalists very much, so I flip that bottle out and pitch it through their back window or through their trunk lid. These are other harms. Let's say I go to Home Depot, and I steal a circular saw, and I take it down the street to the other Home Depot and I get my money so I can go get that little thing I need to get me through the day. Who did I harm? You? You betcha, because there's enough Larrys out there stealing circular saws and driving the prices up. Security prices are going up. I'm harming people. I'm harming things. It doesn't mean I had to have sex with them. It doesn't mean that I got to be angry with them. I stole from Home Depot. It didn't mean that I was angry with them. Did I have fear of Home Depot? Yeah, you betcha, after I stole from them. So there are a lot of people that I hurt in my life that need to go on this list. Who did I hurt? And it doesn't mean I had to have sex with them. There are people that I hurt that go on this list. And what did I do? What did it affect? And what's my part in this thing? And it says, we have listed the people we have hurt by our conduct and are willing to straighten out the past if we can. In this book, you read again and again that faith did for us what we couldn't do for ourselves. We hope you are convinced now that God can remove from you whatever self-will has blocked you off from him. If you have already made a decision, step 3, an inventory of your gross or handicap, step 4, you have made a good beginning. Dang. And you thought you'd done a bunch. It says, that being so, you have swallowed and digested some big chunks of truth about yourself. Y'all have any questions on the how it works 4-step inventory?
more a discussion point, I guess, than a question. But when we're going through the resentment and the fear and the sex inventory, there's a lot of clear-cut, precise direction. This other harms thing seems pretty important, but it's just barely brushed over in one sentence at the end of the chapter.
Yeah.
Any thoughts on why that is, or why we didn't get the same clear-cut direction on that stuff?
Well, in my mind, and I don't mean to be grandiose, but in my mind it's very clear to me because I treat it just like I do sex, just like I do resentment or fears. I list who I hurt, and there was a lot of people. I'm going to give you an example. I'm going to get through this without boo-hooing. My mother died of pancreatic cancer. And when she was dying, she was on a Brompton's cocktail, which is probably the most potent narcotic there is. And I was still out there. She died in 86, and I didn't get sober till 87, so I was at the end of my run and pretty well advanced. And my mother became nocturnal. She wanted to stay up at night, and I was doing a lot of cocaine and drinking, and I could stay up with her while the rest of my family were asleep. But I do so much of that crap from time to time. You get that jaw locked down where you can't get your teeth open, and the booze wasn't getting me. It wasn't loosening me up enough. And so when I would go in the house, I would grab my mother's Brompton cocktail, and I'd sip on it. It came in these pint or quart-sized brown bottles. I didn't hurt my mother because she was never deprived of what she needed. But when I got sober and I look back at those days, here's what I know to be a fact. Her pain, her discomfort, and her need for that drug would have never, ever come to mind because I was so selfish and self-centered. I would have put her in harm's way. She would have made that list. What did I do? Do you see where I'm going with this? I don't know that this really deserves a lot of clear-cut direction. If you've done the work up to this point, you've done three inventory sheets. You know, what did it affect? If I did that to my mom, I'm not feeling too good about myself. My personal relationships, if you find out I did that to my mother, you're not thinking I'm a very stand-up guy. You see where I'm going here? It's pretty self-explanatory, at least in my mind it is. Does this make sense? Y'all understand? I don't know what time we took the last break, but let's get into the next chapter, chapter 6. We would love to get about halfway through this chapter so we can walk in tomorrow and wrap up. Is that okay with y'all? This chapter is called Into Action, Not Into Thinking.
Now, having made our personal inventory, what shall we do about it? We've been trying to get a new attitude, a new relationship with our Creator, and to discover the obstacles in our path. We have admitted certain defects. We have ascertained in a rough way what the problem is.
Did you notice up here the third line? It says, we've been trying to get a new attitude. Remember, we've talked about that several times. Attitude about ourselves, about our fellows, and about God.
We have put our finger on the weak items in our personal inventory. Now, these are about to be cast out.
And that's a pretty strong term. If you've ever gone fishing, you're not just flipping something, you're casting it, or with a net. It's a pretty vigorous action.
This requires action on our part, which, when completed, will mean that we have admitted to God, to ourselves, and to another human being the exact nature of our defects. This brings us to the fifth step in the program of recovery mentioned in the preceding chapter. This is perhaps difficult, especially discussing our defects with another person. We think we have done well enough in admitting these things to ourselves. There is doubt about that. In actual practice, we usually find a solitary self-appraisal insufficient. Many of us thought it was necessary to go much further. We would be more reconciled to discussing our problems with another person when we see good reasons why we should do so.
And what cracks me up, you notice in your book it says reasons. plural, he's only going to give us one.
And here's the best reason. If we skip this vital step, remember vital, life-sustaining, we may not overcome drinking.
And then we go to page 73. We're going to go to the first full paragraph in the middle of the page, more than most people.
The alcoholic leads a double life. He is very much the actor. To the outer world, he presents his stage character. This is the one he likes his fellows to see. He wants to enjoy certain reputation, but knows his heart doesn't deserve it.
And then we're going to skip over to page 75.
We pocket our pride and go for it. We're in the second full paragraph.
And the reason we're skipping that, this was written in the 30s. At the time of the writing, an estimated 15 to 40 people were on the planet were sober. So they made some suggestions of some people that you might want to go to for taking your fifth step. And today there's, sponsors on every corner. So we're just going to skip over and we're going to actually get into the work here.
We pocket our pride and go to it. Illuminating every twist of character, every dark cranny of the past. Here's some fifth step promises.
And little trivia, there's 32 promises between page 75 and 85. And another dig at the fellowship. When we go to meetings, and I don't know about your meeting, but in mine, we don't read the 9th step promises. We don't read how it works. We don't read the 12 traditions. We read the things we read last night. Because the 9th step promises, in my first meeting, I go in, and they read how it works. They read the traditions. At the end of the meeting, they read the promises. And it said, I'm going to be amazed from halfway through. Halfway through with what? The meeting? The coffee? This cup of coffee? What the hell are you talking about? So, we said we'd tell you when we have an opinion, and my opinion is this. There are some beautiful promises in this book, not taking anything away from the 9th step promises, but I don't understand those promises until I've done that portion of the work. We're in the 5th step, and here's some of the promises that they're going to make us.
Because once we have taken this step, withholding nothing, we are delighted. We can look the world in the eye.
Remember when you first got here, you were a shoe person? People walk up and say, hey, doing? Say, I'm fine.
We can be alone.
No. No, there's 32 promises between 75 and 85. And you can count them. I don't know how many are on this page, but there's a bunch.
Here's one of the greatest ones there is for a Charlie guy like me. We can be alone at perfect peace and ease.
There you go.
Our fears fall from us. We begin to feel the nearness of our Creator. Now, we may have had certain spiritual beliefs, but now we begin to have a spiritual experience. The feeling that the drink problem has disappeared will often come strongly. We feel we're on the broad highway.
Capital B and capital H.
Walking hand in hand with the Spirit of the universe.
Okay, so you have taken the 5th step. It's done. Any questions? Timeline with which you do the work. Not next week, not next month. It says, returning home, we find a place where we can be quiet for an hour. My friend Michael over here lives in a sober living environment. And he's going to come and say, my God, they're playing all these video games and they're cooking and they're arguing amongst themselves. It's not quiet. It doesn't say go find a place where it's quiet. It says to find a place where you can be quiet for an hour. I sponsor a lot of guys in sober living environments. Go outside. Go sit by the lake. Go sit in the laundry room. Go find a place where you can be quiet for 1 hour. And then what do you do, Charlie?
Carefully reviewing what we have done.
You've looked back at your 4th step.
We thank God from the bottom of our heart that we know Him better.
There's your prayer.
Taking this book down from our shelves, we turn to the page which contains the 12 steps, page 59. Carefully reading the first 5 proposals,
We pray again.
we ask that we have we admitted anything, for we are building an arch through which we shall walk a free man at last.
Go back to the arch chart.
Now, is our work solid so far?
These are questions you're asking yourself.
Are the stones properly in place? Have we skipped on the cement put into the foundation? Have we tried to make mortar without sand?
Now, you're going into a brand new paragraph here. It says, if you can answer to your satisfaction, then you look at step 6. It doesn't say we take it. What does step 6 say?
We have emphasized willingness as being indispensable.
Step 6 says, were, past tense, entirely ready to have God remove all these defects of character. Were. When I walked in the door, I had hit a bottom with my alcoholism. I was a social outcast. I was a moral reject, and I was dying. And if this didn't work, I was done, because I'm homeless. I can't get into a treatment center. I don't know anything about that. I mean, I'm living on the street, abandoned cars. So I'd hit a bottom with that behavior, with that life I was living. And what they're talking about here in step 6, we're entirely ready. I've just gotten up with my sponsor, and I've admitted time and time again these 5 things that I find to be despicable or objectionable in my makeup. Make sense? So I don't want to be dishonest. I don't want to be selfish. I don't want to be fearful. I don't want to be these things. I want to be able to look the world in the eye. I've hit a bottom with these behaviors. So I'm ready at this point to have God remove these things. So what do I do, Charlie?
We're now ready to let God remove from us all things which we have admitted are objectionable.
And then you ask yourself the question.
Can he now take them all, every one?
And if not, we pray.
We still cling to something, will not let go. We ask God to help us be willing.
End of step 6. So it says when ready, when ready, you go right into your next step.
So, I'm not saying I truly believe they put the numbers behind these steps or in front of these steps for a reason. But like Larry, they put step 6 exactly where it belongs.
Amen.
Because if I'm not ready to have my Creator get rid of this stuff I just puked out in step 5 within an hour, I ain't never going to be ready. Because I have just inventoried Charlie Yow's life, and it ain't a pretty picture. And I did not list assets. I don't think what few assets I have is blocking me from the sunlight of the Spirit. I believe what few assets I got, I believe my defects of character is what's eating my lunch. So in step 6, I reviewed all that. And I'm ready. As honest as I can be, I'm ready. So when ready, Charlie, say something like this.
Not just this, it's something like this. You're expressing an idea here.
In other words, I'm going to pray. My Creator, I am now willing that you should have all of me, good and bad. I pray that you now remove from me every single defect of character which stands in the way of my usefulness to you and my fellows. Grant me strength as I go out from here to do your bidding. Amen.
So now there's your amen, and we have then completed step 7. And the mid-90s, I'd hit a wall with AA and in my life, and I thought, is this all there is? A man had just moved to Atlanta from Texas, and it's a really long story, but I got to know this man, and he asked me one day, he says, has anybody ever taken you through steps 6 and 7, which are known as the forgotten steps, out of the 12 and 12? And I said, no. He says, you in? I said, I am. He gave me a year of his life, and I'd go out to the country and sit on his porch, and we'd drink iced tea, and he'd take me through this work. And the part that jumped out at me, Father Ed Dowling had a great deal to say about these 2 steps. They're very humbling, and they are the forgotten steps. And once you have a good understanding of them, they become a part of your daily life, and they're a great asset. The last paragraph in the 12 and 12 in the seventh step says this. Seventh step is where we make the change in our attitude, there's that word again, which permits us, with humility as our guide, to move out from ourselves toward others and toward God. The whole emphasis on step 7 is on humility. It is really saying to us that we ought to be willing to try humility in seeking the removal of our shortcomings, just as we did when we admitted that we were powerless over alcohol and came to believe that a power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity. Here it is. If that degree of humility could enable us to find the grace by which such a deadly obsession could be banished, then there must be hope of the same result respecting any other problem we could possibly have. Wow. So how desperate are you to get rid of these things that are killing you? Not just the alcoholism, because once again, it wasn't the alcohol that was killing us. It was the behaviors, and the alcohol made it tolerable for a minute. So if you can seek the removal of those things with the same humility that you came dragging your little butt in here on your knees, then there's the promise right there. It says you can expect the same result respecting any other problem you can possibly have. Last paragraph in the 12 and 12 chapter in the seventh step.
If I feel in step 5 I am now walking hand in hand with the Spirit of the universe, why on heaven's sakes would I want to walk hand in hand with my Lord, carrying all that crap with me? I mean, I'm kind of a visual person. So my God's got a hand. He's a whole lot taller than I am, and he's reaching down. He said, "Come on, my child, I'm going to lead you. I'm going to lead the way. But leave that crap behind. You don't need it where I'm taking you. You don't have to take selfishness, self-centeredness, dishonesty, inconsideration, and fear with you. You come with me. We don't need any of that stuff." So I ask him to get rid of it for me. Because if I'm going to be on this path, I don't want to drag it with me. So if I follow these clear-cut directions, when I finish step 5, it should be about an hour and 15 seconds, and I should be on step 8.
Isn't that great?
Now, I'm willing to debate this. You show me where it says it takes me a year to answer that question and to say that prayer. I'm willing to learn. I promise you. And I'm not going to pay you $150 an hour to tell me that. This book cost me $6.25, and it's got a design for living I can live with. And I don't argue with anything in here because I didn't write any of it. Just food for thought, and I'll get off my soapbox.
Guys, I've had this conversation with a few people this weekend. I was talking to Sam in an earlier break. You know, the disclaimer at the beginning last night, we're not gurus, experts, or authorities. We're students of this book just like you. We don't have a better idea. We're not trying to rewrite it. All we're doing is sharing with you what we've collected and was shared with us by those heroes that went before us. And I'm Native American. I'm mainly Cherokee. And in our spirituality and in our walk, there's a term called being a hollow bone, which means I'm teachable. And I want to remain teachable. I want this book and this information to continue to be revealed to me. And something happened to Charlie and I last year. It was March, and we were in Scottsdale, Arizona. And we were invited to go to a men's stag. We don't know what a men's stag is. We kind of perceived that it was a men's meeting, but we don't have those back on the East Coast. And we went to this men's stag with our host husband, Scott, who had 30-plus years. And we went to eat, and we walk in the door, and it was a meeting hall about like this. And when you walked in the front door, they handed us like one of these little raffle tickets. But they didn't ask for any money. And I said, "I wonder what this is." Charlie said, "I don't know." And we're both pretty jet-lagged. And So they told us, they said, there's going to be a guy that'll go to the podium like this, and he'll do a little lead on something out of the 12 and 12, this is all new stuff. We've never done this before. Out of the 12 and 12 or out of the big book. And then there'll be a guy over here at the table, and he'll have all them ticket stubs, and if he calls your number, you go to the podium, and you share on whatever this guy's lead was. I said, okay, I can take clear-cut direction. Well, this cat goes to the podium, and he's an attorney. And he takes the big book, and I'm thinking, this is cool. I like the big book. And he opened the book to page 76, which is where we're at. And here's what he said. He says, now we need more action, without which we find that faith without works is dead. And it says, let's look at steps 8 and 9. It says, we have a list of all persons we have harmed and to whom we are willing to make amends. We made it when we took inventory. And he says, thank you for letting me share. And I'm looking around. There's 150, 200 guys in this room, and I'm thinking, really? We're going to spend an hour talking about a list? Charlie's over here. Charlie will work about 20 hours a day, and Charlie's over here doing this. And I'm hoping that Charlie's going to give me a little guidance, and he can't stay awake. So I said, okay, God, I know I got that little lottery ticket, and I know they're going to call on me, and I just don't know what to say. So it's going around, and these people are going up, and they're talking about stuff, but it ain't really pertaining to this. So I prayed, and I flipped the book over, and I want you to go with me. Flip over to page 59. Keep your finger on 76. This book continues to reveal itself to me, and this may not mean a damn thing to you, but I thought it was huge. You there? The list of the 12 steps? Look at step 8. It says, we made a list of all persons we had harmed and became willing to make amends to them all. We haven't done step 3 yet, right? We just finished with step 2. We all in agreement here? On page 59. We haven't gotten on our knees yet. Flip over to page 76. We've just finished step 7, and the book says, we have a list of all persons we have harmed and to whom we are willing to make amends. Where did the word became go? God has showed up. He's already shown you his power. We've become reliant and trusting upon this power greater than ourselves. We were talking earlier today about Bill Wilson just did not have the capacity to write this book. Who told him to delete that word, to omit the word became? And I had to be 24 years sober before I ever saw it. But we've got this list, and now we're willing to go out and do this amends work because we know how vital it is to our tomorrows.
So the first directions in taking step 8, don't throw away step 4.
We do a men's workshop. These guys out here down in San Diego, they do one too. And there's a bonfire meeting. And it's a spiritual bonfire, and the voices are a little bit lower. And God's in the house. And everybody's sitting in a circle, and they're watching the embers descend to the heavens. And then you'll see some little puke over in the corner, and he'll come up, and he'll have his 4th step. And he walks over to the fire, and he starts feeding the pages in one at a time. And when he's done, there's this round of applause. And we're at the Atlanta Men's Workshop one night, and this kid walks into the fire, and everybody kind of got quiet to let him do this ceremonial burning. And he gets the whole thing, and he starts feeding it in, and somebody goes, "Did you make your 8th step?" The guy jerks it out of the fire, and he's stomping it out. He's going, "Oh, my God!" So don't burn your 4th step.
We submitted ourselves to a drastic self-appraisal. Now we go out to our fellows and repair the damage done in the past. We attempt to sweep away the debris which is accumulated out of our effort to live on self-will and run the show ourselves. Now, if we haven't the will to do this,
we pray
until it comes. Remember, it was agreed at the beginning that we would go to any length for victory over alcohol. Let's skip a couple of paragraphs, so.
Hang on just a second. On this 8-step list, Joe and Charlie devised a little trickery here, and I love it. You've got the first column, which is those people, places, institutions that you're willing to go out and make amends to now. This would be the easy ones, like her or mama or people that are local. If you're living in a sober living environment and you're not in your hometown, the people that you can get to now. Then you've got the ones that are later. Let's say you're from Chicago and you can't see those people because it says direct amends. That's looking you dead in the eye. That's not an email. That's not a text. It's not a phone call. It's a direct amends, eyeball to eyeball. And the reason for that, you get to see what the response is. You have no delusion about how they are accepting this amends. Then you got your laters. These are the ones that you can't get to right now, or you need to get a little piece of change put together, whatever the case may be. And then you got these people that are maybes. You're just unsure, but you list them. And then you got the sons of bitches you ain't never going to talk to, and you put them in that never column. Now, what happens is when you go out there and you get a little track record going, you know, like my first one was to my sister, and she said, "Oh, Larry, it wasn't that bad." I'm going, "Oh, but sis, oh, Larry." And then, you know, I'm thinking, well, that went pretty good. And then I made a few like that. And I went over to this cat's place. It worked at a television station where I used to work. And I went in, and all he'd do, he saw me. And he had the security come and usher me out. I never got, "How you doing?" I mean, I was back out on the sidewalk. And that amends went really well because I had no reservations exactly how he felt about me and the things that I'd done. I mean, I threatened this guy's life, and his reaction to me was. But the point is, you go out and you get a little track record going. You get all these nows done, and then the columns move over. The laters become nows. The maybes become laters. The nevers become maybes. You see where I'm going with this? And I got to tell you, a good amends is when somebody really tells you the degree of the harm that you created. But this is a cool little sheet. Works for me and my guys. Again, another suggestion. And before we go any further, because I'm about to turn off the computer, if you don't have this contact information and you need it, you can write it down. We have cards on the front table with that information on it if you want one of those.
Are we calling it a night?
No?
Are you quitting?
No, I'm just getting the water. Is that all right?
Oh.
Am I quitting? No, we're done with the slides.
Oh.
That's the end of the slideshow.
Okay.
I can show a movie.
Because I ain't done.
No, this is just the end of the slideshow. I'm putting the computer up.
Page 77, third line down. Our real purpose is to fit ourselves to be of maximum service to God and the people about us. It is seldom wise to approach an individual who still smarts from our injustice to him. Then announce that we have gone religious.
Guys, I guess you figured out now we are in the 9th step amends process.
Now, in the prize ring, we'd call this leading with the chin. Why lay ourselves open to be branded fanatics or religious bores? Now, we may kill a future opportunity to carry a beneficial message, but our man is sure to be impressed with a sincere desire to set right the wrong. He is going to be more interested in a demonstration of goodwill than in our talk of spiritual discovery.
Make no mistakes, money greases the wheel. It's going to grease the wheel. If you want to walk in and talk about God, you're going to probably get thrown out on your ear. But if you owe people money, you want to lead with that money. You know, they already know your empty promises.
We don't use this as an excuse for shying away from the subject of God. When it will serve any good purpose, we are willing to announce our convictions and with tact and common sense. The question of how to approach a man we hated will arise. It may be that he has done us more harm than we've done him. And though we may have acquired a better attitude toward him, we're still not too keen about admitting our faults. Nevertheless, with a person we dislike, we take the bit in our teeth. It's harder to go to an enemy than a friend, but we find it much more beneficial to us. We go to him in a helpful and forgiving spirit, confessing our former ill feelings and expressing our regret. Under no conditions do we criticize such a person or argue. Simply, we tell him that we will never get over drinking until we have done our utmost,
Our very best.
to straighten out the past. We are there to sweep off our side of the street, realizing that nothing worthwhile can be accomplished until we do so. Never trying to tell him what he should do. His faults are not discussed. We stick to our own.
Guys, in this particular portion of the book, there's going to be situations that aren't covered here, and they're giving us an overview of what ifs and maybes. And one of the things that I'm going to suggest to you in this process, it's not in this process, it's back in that fifth step process, and I need you to hear this because this is extremely vital and it's not covered in the book. If you've got a person that you're working with, I strongly suggest that before you get started with that fifth step proposition, explain to them if they have an unresolved felony, capital crime, unresolved, that you can't hear that. There are attorneys, there are a dime a dozen in this little fellowship, and you can give them $1 and hire them, and that way they employ or engage the client-attorney privilege and allow them to hear that portion of the fifth step. Because if you take it, and your pride and ego is going to want you to hear it, all of a sudden you become an accessory. You are implicated in a capital offense because you have knowledge. Please, please, please. We were in a little spin dry or sober living thing down in Central Georgia last year, and we were covering offenses, crimes. And this guy sitting in a room full of 150 people raised his hand and he blurted out this capital crime that was unresolved. And I said, thanks, dude. You just implicated 150 people in your damn misdoing. It's a serious deal, dead serious. I had a guy do that to me on some stuff, and I'll carry it to my grave because it was disturbing and it was an unresolved issue. But please, and I'm sorry to skip back so far, but it's very, very, very important. And my ego wants to hear that stuff. Not a good idea because it's like Charlie said to somebody last night, you can't outrun today's computers. They're going to get caught. And if your name comes up, you're going down. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Charlie.
No problem. Now, his faults are not discussed. We stick to our own. If our manner is calm, frank, and open, we'll be gratified with the result.
Clear-cut directions.
Now, in 9 cases out of 10, the unexpected happens. Sometimes the man we are calling upon admits his own faults, so feuds of years standing melt away in an hour. Rarely do we fail to make satisfactory progress. Our former enemies sometimes praise what we're doing and wish us well. Occasionally, they will offer assistance. It should not matter, however, if someone does throw us out of his office. We have made our demonstration, done our part. It's water over the dam. In other words, walk out of that place, sit down in your truck, pick up your little pencil, and go check. Don't relive it. It's done. This book tells me that. Don't relive it and said, yeah, but, well, I ought to. Well, I need to go tell him one other thing.
Yeah.
You know, in the South, they talk about letting sleeping dogs lie. Check it off and go to another one. It's water over the dam. Now, most alcoholics owe money.
That doesn't pertain to y'all, does it? Out here? I mean, really?
Yes, sir.
I like it.
I just had a quick question. It said here that if we don't have the will to do this, we ask until it comes. And you've been pretty clear on the timeline on everything. So.
Okay. Okay. On your sheet, your resentment list, your fear list, sexual conduct, you got more than one entry. There may be one that still kind of stings, but that doesn't mean you can't take action on some more. And you pray, and you get a track record, and you pray for this other SOB that you've been praying to die, and now you're trying to pray, well, I hope his dog don't die. That's what you pray for, the willingness to someday get this guy off that never list and put it on at least the maybes. I believe that's what they're talking about. Because there's some people, and they're talking about it. He's done me a whole lot more harm than I've done him. And it's going to be hard to walk up and say, for 30 years, man, I've let you have the power over me. And that was wrong. You ain't worth the power over me. And I was wrong, and I just want you to know that. I don't know if your ears are ever burnt, but I have killed you night after night after night. And I was wrong. God should judge you, not me.
Character assassination is a big one. It really is, and we're bad about that. Anything to defocus the focus off of me and put it on somebody else. I don't want to be wrong. The book talked about it, leveling of our pride, admission of our faults. No. We're going to finish this paragraph. Wrap it up.
Okay. We have made our list. Most alcoholics owe money. We do not dodge our creditors. Tell them what we are trying to do. We make no bones about our drinking. They usually know it anyway, whether we think so or not. Nor are we afraid of discussing our alcoholism on a theory it may cause financial harm. Approached in this way, the most ruthless creditors will sometimes surprise us.
And here's some real clear-cut, very important directions, arranging the best deal we can.
We let these people know we're sorry. Our drinking has made us slow to pay. We must lose our fear of creditors, no matter how far we have to go, for we are liable to drink if we're afraid to face them.
Guys, we're going to wrap it up right there. Tomorrow we are not going to be here, just so that, in case you're thinking I'm not coming tomorrow, we're not going to be here long at all. We may make 2.5 hours, dead serious. We made better time today than we always do. And so thank you guys for being a great crowd with us today. It's been a kick.